Hi guys, today we are so excited to share with you an interview that we actually just got to do on Saturday with an author and an editor and a mom and a wife. She is so many things. She's doing amazing work for the Lord, and we can't wait to share it with you right here, right now. But first, we need to remind you to jump on our email list so that we can get you the links to Lindsay Schlegel's new book, God's Little Flowers. And we are, oh my gosh, I can't even describe how excited we are to share with you this.
It's so good.
It's so good. And we have all the links for you to go buy the book and to see what she's up to on our email list. And this collaboration has been a lot of fun. She is just so joyful and has so many gifts to share and so much good advice. So here it is, our interview with Lindsay Schlegel. We are so excited here today to have with us Lindsay, and we're so excited to hear all about her new book, God's Little Flowers. And she is a daughter of God, a wife, a mother, a writer, editor, and student, finishing up an MFA in creative writing. She has authored and co-authored 2 books for adults, lots of articles and short stories, online and in print, and has worked in traditional publishing for over 20 years in lots of different spaces. I read through your bio on your website, and I was like, whoa, that is a lot of categories.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
I know. Yes, so thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your gifts with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to spend time with you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this. So share with us a little bit about your passion for writing and how you got the idea for God's Little Flowers.
Sure. So I have always loved books. Maybe kind of thought I wanted to be a writer, but didn't really think it could happen. Evidenced by the fact that the only creative writing classes I took during school were second semester senior year of high school and second semester senior year of college. When I finally was like, if I'm gonna do it, I need to do it now. But I think I didn't really know if I could, or like if that was a thing you did. I don't know. So I got into publishing and worked at a couple of places, then worked at Simon & Schuster until my first son was born. And then I stayed home, and I've been freelancing ever since. He's almost 14 and a half. So I've been freelancing for a long time. And I think that's kind of why there's been so many things that I've been able to work on. I've worked with adult and children and fiction and nonfiction. And I think that's a good thing. Like the same way that it's good to read widely, it's been such a gift to be able to work widely. I think learning how to craft a narrative argument also helps you figure out how to tell a story, a fictional story with a character, and vice versa. And I think of writing and editing as cross-training. When you learn to write well, you can edit better. When you're like giving the editorial feedback, you learn to receive it better. And when you're receiving the editorial feedback, you learn to give it better. So I think those two things are really important to work together. So I've just had this gift of being able to do these things, in part also because my husband and I got married a year and a half out of college and then had our son about a year later. So I didn't have a lot of time in the traditional work world outside of college, and I thought I wanted something to come back to once our kids were grown, but as it happened, I kind of just kept doing things at different speeds, different paces, depending on where we were in our family and our parenting journey. And some of those things have just turned into bigger things than I would have expected. And a lot of things have turned into things that I wouldn't have expected at all. So this book came about because I know, but we've never met in person. Katerina is the owner of Little Way Design Company. And I'd interviewed her a couple times, once for Verily, I want to say once for maybe, I forget. Let's forget that. I've interviewed her a couple times because she does beautiful handwriting work. She has a beautiful shop. She has a workbook that my 2 boys learned to do like calligraphy on their own at ages like 6 and 8 or something like that. She's incredibly talented, beautiful person. And I had interviewed her, and she knew that I was into children's books, among other things. So she had a dream. And the dream was what turned into God's Little Flowers. And she thought about making it a picture book, but she's an illustrator, a graphic designer, and not a writer. So she reached out to me and said, I think you do something with children's books. Do you know someone who could write this, or would you want to give it a try? And I was like, I can try. I tried writing a couple of picture books before. My literary agent had looked at them, and I just couldn't quite get there with them years ago. There's like that last little bit was missing that made it all click together. Like good premise, not execution. So Katerina and I got on the phone and we chatted for a while, and I sat down at my dining room table and wrote what is basically the book as it still is today, which doesn't happen. Like you don't write a first draft and it becomes a book. That like little tweaks have happened, but this is not. That it came out that fast, that I've had so much trouble trying to get a manuscript all the way there in the past. And I've been trying to work on a boy's companion kind of version, and it's not quite getting there either. It is so much the gift of the Holy Spirit. And the book is about recognizing your gifts and honoring those in others and using your gifts to serve others. And I think the book is what it sets out. It is the message that it set out to share with the world. So I'm just very grateful that I got to be part of it.
Yeah, I think that's what resonated with us the most, is that something, like, that's kind of what we are about. Like, when you're wholly surrendering, you're understanding that your gifts are meant to work in tandem with others and to build up the kingdom, and you have to know that your identity is in God and that you are created so uniquely that it's not even comprehensible, but He's going to put all these people to complete the puzzle. So I love how it's almost like a frame tale. Like, on the outside, you got paired up and you got matched up to complement your gifts and actually get a manuscript through, but also within the book, there was this, like, coming to understand how gifts work together, and I think that was what resonated the most with me.
And one thing that I thought about a lot while reading through it, the probably dozen times that I've read it now, is that, you know, even as adults, we fall into the trap of comparison, especially in ministry, and we compare, oh, her gifts are way better than mine, and so I can't serve as well, or, you know, those evil lies. And it's just a beautiful testament for all ages, but especially, you know, I was thinking about my daughter is 9, and that is a big trap that she falls into, is comparing herself to others. And so I'm very excited to get a hard copy and read it to her, because there's so many directions that we can go with this.
Yes. Right, and I think what Katerina really came to me with was, this is happening like too young. Like as adults we're doing this, but girls are doing this too, and it's just happening so young. Something that just struck me this last week at Ash Wednesday Mass. There was a priest and a deacon at Mass, and after communion was done, they were, I feel like cleaning up the altar is the wrong way to say that. They were putting things back in their place. The deacon took the rest of the host and put it in the tabernacle. The priest was taking some of the articles and putting them on the side table. And it struck me that these two men were walking away from the altar table in two different directions, and they were both serving at the same time. And one's job was not, arguably, bringing the Eucharist back to the tabernacle was more important, but they were both serving, right? And it was really important when we were working on this, to Katerina in particular, on the book and the note at the end, the note to parents at the end, that it is not just about identifying your gifts. That is important. It is also important to take those gifts and to serve those around you, because that's how you serve God. To just recognize that you have gifts and you're special, there's a lot of books that could do that. There's a lot of books that do that. But that can then lead to pride, and that can lead to some comparison and stuff too. And that it's only part of it. The second part is, you have these gifts because they were meant to serve.
Yes, it's almost like an introduction to charisms, kind of, sort of, like, at the base level. And that's something that's been really powerful, because we just recently did an interview, because God kind of does the same thing with us. Like, we truly have to work in tandem, and we're kind of lost without the other person. And most of the time, it's very weird, but we just know. I'm like, no, Haley's going to be the one to finish this. And I'll be like, come fix it, please. And she'll jump in and edit something, and I'm like, yep, that's it. Or vice versa. She'll be like, Jill, I can't figure this out. Can you just come in and, like, do your thing and spruce it up? And it doesn't matter if it's writing. It's not specific, whether it's writing or designing or creating different things or putting together plans. Like, we're meant to feed off of each other.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to wholly surrender, because God made us both probably
Very
unbearably
similar.
independent.
Oh, yeah, I do. I think that we're trying to figure out which, like, charisms we have so that we can figure out how to work better. But I'm like, we're so similar in some respects, but it's crazy. It's so funny.
It is.
But one thing that I really loved about your book at the end of the story was not only did she identify her own gifts and was told to serve, but then she encouraged her friends in their gifts. And I think that's beautiful because, especially as Catholics, we're not good at the feedback part, and that's really important. Yeah. We need the feedback to figure out, okay, this is a Holy Spirit gift, or maybe it's just an earthly talent. There's such a vast difference there.
And it's so true, and it's hard to kind of tell the difference. So, like, your character takes such a big leap of faith to step out and do what the Lord is calling her to do, even in encouraging her friends. Mm-hmm. And it actually makes me wonder, how did you feel God impacting your identity and understanding your gifts as his daughter when you were writing this?
Yeah, I think because, I thought when I first started writing, I thought I wanted to write fiction, and that didn't really go very well, and I ended up writing nonfiction, and then I wrote nonfiction with someone else, and then I was doing this and doing that. And then this project, as I said, this project kind of happened the way that it happened, and it just made me so aware that my gifts are to serve others, and they're out of my control. Like, Flannery O'Connor says a writer can choose what they want to write, but they can't choose what they will make live, which I think kind of taps into this too. Like, we can go try to do a bunch of things, and we'll grow and we'll learn as we're doing those things, but there's something kind of beyond that that we can discern with prayer, and sometimes we discern by doing, like figuring out which things work and which things aren't quite what we're called to. And there's surrender in that too, that like, I really wish I could write this kind of novel, but that's not the kind of novel I'm called to be writing, because I'm not going to do that. I just don't have it. It's not going to happen. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if I get stuck on that, then I'm not going to write the thing that I am supposed to be writing. And everyone misses out on that. So I think some of that lifting up others without putting ourselves down is a very tricky balance to strike. And this is also making me think about love languages. My husband and I learned of love languages a couple years into our marriage. And mine is words of affirmation. His is not, which has been an interesting journey of him learning how to say the things that encourage me, and me learning that he doesn't need me to say all the things I've been saying. Like, he wants quality time. Like, he wants a meal, and like put out the nice napkins. Or I'm like, can we just sit on the couch? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, but it's different, learning what the other person is going to receive. I think that kind of that's on like a personal level, right? But going beyond that, what can you give that someone needs also? I'm thinking there are these 3 questions for discernment that one of the priests at my college would talk about. Hope I can get them right. To figure out, what do you want to do? Does it bring me joy? Not does it make me happy? Am I good at it? And does somebody need me to do it? So I think those things, kind of keeping those in mind too, can help guide us into what the path that God's leading us on.
Mm-hmm. I think that's such a hard question sometimes. Like, does somebody need it? Because something we talk about a lot is that you'll find your wounds are usually around your greatest gifts. Like, those are the places that you're called to serve and you're called to move for the Lord. And he's going to go, you've got this. And the enemy's going to he's going to seek to kill and destroy that gift. Right. And so that thought, does somebody need that encounter with the Lord more than I need to do what I think I need to do? Like, I think the secular world would call that like finding your target market, right? Like finding your niche, finding that place. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so much more powerful than that. I also love when you mentioned that this came up in a dream for someone, I was like, so very Saint Joseph, which is these days coming up. Like,
I know, but the whole story was there.
That's so.
And then she passed it to me, and then I put it on a piece of paper. I mean, there are like tiny bits I added that like I needed them. We needed the girls to have a lot of flowers. So it's like the backyard is not going to cut it. Let's go to a botanical garden instead. But also that came from me living in the city and learning what a botanical garden was and loving, we lived in New York, and we still go to the Bronx Botanical Gardens maybe every other year. They have a wonderful thing at Christmas. They have these beautiful orchids in the spring. But just learned that was like part of me. That was just part of life. And then it ended up in this. So that I thought that was a gift of my family just enjoying time together and enjoying nature. But then those images and that sense of being there and what you could learn there turned into this other thing.
Yes. You never know where God's going to plant seeds. Yeah. Sometimes he just drops them on you. Yes. And it's so crazy. what was something you had to surrender when it came to writing this book? Because I know that vaguely that the writing process of getting something published is kind of a gauntlet. Like, there's a lot to it sometimes. So what did you have to surrender, and how did it help you grow in your relationship with God?
So there was a lot of waiting. There's always a lot of waiting in publishing. But typically with a picture book, you don't bring your illustrator with you if you have a manuscript. If you're going to a traditional publisher, obviously if you're self-publishing, different story because you're finding all the things. But if you're going traditional, then the publisher is going to find and hire an illustrator. And you may get some input to various degrees. But your job was the manuscript. Manuscript editor work together, art director, illustrator work together. Art director and editor are working together, but like you don't talk to you have to leave enough room in your text for the artwork to work in. Like if you think of, to my mind, the best picture books that I know are the ones where the art and the illustrations work together. And there are some things in the text that aren't in the art, and some things in the art that aren't in the text. And some things that they are both doing together, right? So like any good relation, it's even like a marriage, right? Like there's things we do well on our own, there's things that we do well together. So most of the time, the author submits a manuscript. In this case, we kind of couldn't do that because it was the illustrator's idea. Originally, this was Katerina was going to illustrate it. So I already had a contact at our Sunday Visitor who helped with The Road to Hope, which was the book I co-authored about the church's response to addiction. So I already knew somebody there. So I said, I have this project. And she was like, yes, let me see it. And they asked for so we put a proposal together, the manuscript, some sample artwork, and they asked for some revisions. And the writing revisions were very simple, very easy. Again, not my writing, Holy Spirit. And the illustrator ones were that just generally takes more time to redraw something. And the timing just didn't work out with what else Katerina is doing. Her shop is doing wonderfully. She also has 5 kids. Interestingly, she has 4 girls and a boy, and I have 4 boys and a girl. And we tried for a while, and it just didn't work. And she said, in another act of total surrender and humility, she said, this book, it's more important to me that this book is out in the world than that my name is on it. So I would like you to go take it. Just go to OSB on your own. And I will step aside and they can choose an illustrator.
Wow.
And that's what happened. So I think there was like a year or something in there. I was doing other things. Is this going to happen? I don't know. It's out of my hands. And so, but then it happened. It was the time that it needed to happen. And the illustrator that they found she does such beautiful work. She has beautiful flowers. I'm actually across my room looking, I have a puzzle of hers right now. Joy Laforme does puzzles. She does lots of beautiful work. And so it made room for her gifts to come be part of this project too. But it wasn't my choice. I would have loved to work with Katerina all the way through, but that's just not what happened. And then it was released in February, and I'm still working on my master's thesis, so trying to promote it. I'm very grateful that we have this time to do this now, but trying to finish an actual novel, which is now finished, but not edited. It's been a lot of things up in the air. But all in God's time, it happens when it happens for a reason, and we can't see what those things are in the moment. So I pray the litany of trust every morning for years now. There was a little time when I thought, maybe I should step back and try something else. And that was an awful idea. It spiraled real fast. So I still pray that prayer every morning, and I think that has helped prime me to be able to do things like this, and to trust that your plan is always better than mine. Whatever happens today, it's all in your hands to start with.
Oh, I got goosebumps just hearing about wow, what power is there in that humility of right. Somebody needs this more than I need to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And even knowing that God is going to fill that gap with beautiful artwork from someone who also understands how his heart is being shared with the world through this piece. And I'm just like, man, that just makes you ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice for the greater good of the kingdom?
Right. And your pictures, what you thought, I was nervous. She's been wonderful. Anytime I sent her, I had something that I could share with her, be like, here's the cover. She was like, it's beautiful. I was like, okay, I know. But that's so hard, right? To see something that you thought was going to look in your style and the way you draw people and the way you draw flowers and what you thought it was going to look like. And she just surrendered it so beautifully and made room and space for other people to benefit from it. So I'm just so grateful.
Yes.
For the example that she has given me too, you know?
Yeah. And it's a testament, like it's like the first testimony from your book here of letting God empower you to use your gifts to serve others.
Yeah.
And like it was clearly needed that she needed to have this idea, this concept, and that it needed to happen this way. And you're right, sometimes the hardest part is not knowing the details. I know I love my facts and my and my statistics. I am a data-driven person, and the Lord knows that. And it's so funny because when I get my hands on too much data, he just like sticks his little finger in and spins things up, and I'm like, dang it, I was gonna control that. And he's
Right.
like,
Just when you
actually.
think you're actually not going to control that. Thanks so much for playing.
Yeah. Thank you for trying. It was cute.
That was real cute. I think there's a lot of times that God's like, Linz, that was real cute, but here's what we're actually going to do. Okay.
Yeah.
I know, your way's probably better. I have some ideas. He's like, shh.
He's like,
No.
Okay.
he's so gentle.
know.
I think, yeah, we were praying the other day and I was stressing about something and someone was like, I just feel like he's telling you to take a chill pill. I was like, gosh darn it.
God talk like that?
A chill pill?
He does.
Which is, it so resonates with me because, yeah, like Jill needs to take a chill pill. And like it all rhymes, it all works out. And we'll probably put it on a t-shirt now. Take a chill pill and trust.
Love God.
Love God, yes.
Dear you.
Dear you. This is a note to self.
Yep.
Right,
Don't
right.
screw this up by trying to do it yourself. Oh goodness. Life with God is a beautiful adventure, as JP2 said.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing what he does because he kind of did the same thing with my husband and I recently. Like, we've been praying and thinking about, having the next baby, and we want to discern it with the Lord. But he called us to serve our community and a friend who was in need recently. And it was hilarious because when I first had the ooh, baby fever, always hits 6-7 months postpartum. And you're like, I can do this again.
I had forgotten everything that just happened.
Exactly. I had forgotten.
I
all
got
the
one full
craziness.
night of sleep.
Yes, and you're so cute. Let's just have another one. And the Lord's always like, no, wait, wait a minute. And he kind of did that with me, but I didn't realize this fall we would be merging our businesses. We'd be creating Holy Surrender. We'd be doing all this craziness. We'd also be renovating our basement so someone could move into it. And he was like, you need to wait until next year. And I was like, but why? And I'm like, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
For not letting me get in over my head. And it's amazing to be on the other side of that and to see the fruits that you're seeing. So what are your prayers for this story? And do you have any advice for those who feel the Lord calling them to write and use their gifts for the kingdom?
Yeah. Well, my hope is that this book is going to be read many, many times over. I hope it's the kind of book that when you read it, when your kids ask for you to read it 75 times, you don't mind. When you're writing a children's book, you have to be very careful because you're writing for the child, but you're also writing for the person who's reading to the child, and you don't want to drive that person crazy because you love them and because they buy the books. So if you drive them crazy, they're not recommending this to their friends. So I hope it's something that gets read and again. I hope that that the adults who are reading it too get something out of it. That was important to Katerina too, that it's kind of as much for us as it is for our kids because some of us have gotten stuck in patterns, or we're on social media and please God, our little girls aren't. And those things can mess with us, or we're in the work world, or we're parenting, or comparing ourselves to other moms. I think there is something true and good at the base of our comparison to others, because I think women in particular are relational beings, and so we want to be in community, and we want to know about other people. We want to be known. And I think I'm still kind of working on how exactly to articulate this, but I think there is this, at root, there is something good and beautiful there, and it has gotten twisted because of pride and because of concupiscence and other things that happen to us. But I think there is something good there, and I think if we can flip it back over to the place where we're encouraging each other, encouraging our daughters and our sons and our husbands and our friends, and our priests and our sisters, if we can be encouraging to other people and continuing to do the good work that we need to do too, I think we serve the church and we serve people around us, and that is a way to evangelize. I have a little sticker on my fridge that says, be the reason that someone believes God is good. And I think that's what we're called to do. As to someone who feels like they're called to write, read a lot. I've heard people say read widely, and I know I mentioned that earlier. I think read widely, and if you need help understanding something, if you don't have the context to read maybe a classic that you missed in high school or college or sometime, and you just don't feel like you know how to read it or how to get into it, then there's a ton of videos on YouTube, and I'm sure other places too, or podcasts that are professors and scholars making these works accessible to people. So I'm just finishing up a Master's of Fine Arts at the University of St. Thomas, Houston. It's the first Catholic MFA, I think, in the world. And it's fantastic, and I am so grateful for it. And I have become a better writer and a better editor, and I've also become a better reader because I have had someone helping me work through things and figure them out and draw the connections that the gaps in my a very good education otherwise, but there were gaps. And as an English major, I didn't see how one thing led to the next for a variety of reasons. So I think learning that context, learning the foundation of what we are building on helps us to be better writers. And if you can find a writer's workshop, if you can find people to exchange your work with, the idea that writing and editing are cross-training, I think is enormous. Learning how to receive feedback, learning how to give feedback helps you be a better writer. And it prepares you for when it's time to send your work out into the world to receive either an acceptance or a rejection with grace, because both of those things are going to continue leading you to where God wants you to be.
Yeah, I think that's so good. I hear a lot, or like on podcasts and stuff, a lot of people are like, make sure you write every day. And I think that that's good advice, because you have to exercise those muscles in order to get used to using them, because you just, like you said, you've been writing a novel, and that's not like a 5-page paper. You kind of have to work your way up and build your resistance to, okay, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of words on a page,
right,
pouring out of my heart. But I love the idea, and I've heard it only one other place thus far, like that you need to also read, like in order to kind of master the art form that you're going for, you have to come into a greater understanding of it. And maybe I just love that because I love to read. I'm a sucker for books, and that's the way that the Lord shows me his love sometimes. I'll be like, I'm not going to buy another book. And he's like, actually, I'm going to need you to read this because someone else needs the knowledge. And I'm like, oh, well, you twisted my arm. Here we go.
I am the music person in this relationship. Jill throws all her knowledge at me, and I'm like, Reader's Digest version, please.
Give me the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of reading, but also understanding.
Yeah, reading and taking it apart. Like when you're learning to play music, when you're learning to paint, you go and learn how the masters did what they did, right? You imitate what they did. You know, like my son plays the piano, a couple of my kids play the piano, and they're playing Bach, and they're playing Chopin, and they're playing Schumann, and they're learning how they did that so that they can go play it well. And like my son wants to, whatever. But I think we take that for granted for reading, that like, oh, just read the book. I think we have to go in and like study it and take it apart. Not all of them. If it's your favorite book, maybe don't do that. So you can keep loving it. You're not picking apart at it, but maybe that's going to help you appreciate it even more. I think just reading for the sake of reading is a good thing, but I don't think that necessarily leads to reading in a way that improves you as a writer. I think you have to dig in a little bit more deeply. And for me, the classes that I've just finished up really helped me do that.
Yes, I think that's awesome. And I also love, I think writing is a gift that, like, kind of, it does keep on giving, right? But it's such an empowering way to, like, include other people. Because, like you said, writing and editing are cross-training. So you effectively cannot write a book by yourself. Just like, no one can make a pencil. Yeah, exactly.
Please don't do that.
You need someone to give you feedback, to help you break through it, to help, just like your relationship with God. You need someone to refine you and help you, like you said, for when your work goes out into the world, so it can have the impact that God intends it to be. And I love when he throws those things in, because he knows our, like you said, pride, concupiscence, all these things twist up. And he's like, too bad you're made for community. Really love what you're trying to do here. But maybe the person editing it needs it as much as you need someone to edit it. So I think that's really powerful. And I think that it's almost like you said, digging into the story a little bit. I think it's a cool underlying tale in this children's book, like your journey writing it and sharing gifts with others, and also understanding that our gifts like are meant to uplift and encourage one another and empower us to do what God is calling us to do. So, do you want to tell people where they can find you? And we'll
Sure.
leave all the links below too.
Sure. So my website is lindsayschlegel.com. You probably want to look that up because Lindsay with an A, but there's only E's in Schlegel. It gets very confusing. But currently on the homepage, there are some bonus materials for the book. Also, there's a video that explains kind of how I hid the names of the female doctors of the church in the book. And there are some activity pages that are totally free. Print them out, share them with whoever. And then I have a Substack, lindsayschlegel.substack.com. I call it 8 on the 8s. And so there's 8 categories I created for myself, and each month, on the 8th of the month, I fill them in. What I'm reading, what my kid's reading, what I'm working on, what I'm knitting or something, a quote that struck me that month, kind of in part to keep me a little bit off of social media. Instead of posting things as they come to mind, I have a Google Doc that always has this template up. And each month I put things in as they come up and kind of can have a more intentional post once a month instead of, should I be doing more or less? What does the algorithm want? I actually don't care, but I kind of care, but because it feels like, so I just do this instead. And it's lovely. It's much
I
better.
love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been wondering about Substack. I keep hearing about it.
Yeah, it's like a blog, but all the blogs are in one place. So they're all connected. So you can recommend other people's Substacks. They can recommend yours. There's a bunch of features I haven't tapped into that I don't even know if I will. But it's been a good way for me to connect with people. I think in a way that is more what I want my relationship with it to be.
I love that. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here and talk with us. We've definitely been blessed by your gifts, and I already wish I had been taking notes because I definitely feel how the Lord is speaking to me through you and your journey with this book. And yeah, I'm hoping we have the opportunity to work and interact with you and your stuff more.
Yeah.
Hope so. Thank you, ladies. This was a delight.
Yes.
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too.